So we continue. We did chapter 307, Shin Zayin, page 625, and we'll continue to chapter Shin Ches. And so let me just summarize it, and then we'll summarize it inside. In context of the whole flow here. So in Perek Shin Hei begins a new subplot, right? The two interpretations in that, Tefillah and Torah. Because if a mincha is the highest level of kesed, you can't, as he asked the question, you can't elevate it higher. So what does it mean, the mincha l'kei melech? So one interpretation is you're drawing it down into l'kei melech. L'kei is lashon koyach, melech is malchus. As he explained, it's the level of a shem. I'll elaborate in a moment. And the second interpretation is you elevate l'kei melech to a mincha through tefillah. So Torah draws down, davening, tefillah elevates. Basically, tefillah doesn't need ostensibly a power from above. You can sit down without anything and just start calling out to God. Torah is a gili. God gave us the Torah. You can't figure it out on your own. Once He gave it to us, we study it. And then to understand that goes the whole discussion now into what exactly is melech, the level of malchus. So he began that malchus is the level of shem. So he's introducing the new concept here, shem. We discussed Eir at length in the previous Maimorim chapters, the beginning of the Hemshech. Now comes a level called shem. In general, shem and Eir are the same level, he says. But more specifically, shem, a name, doesn't have any revelation. When you hear a name doesn't tell you anything. Even though it contains power, Eir right away reveals the source, shem does not, the name does not. So, in a sense, it's like one step removed from the item that's called by that name. In the chapter Shin Zayin, he elaborated and explained that even though from a name you could know things, or you see Adam HaRishon gave everything a name, all the creatures a name. Why? Because he had a particular knowledge. But still, it doesn't mean that it reveals anything. It just tells you what the source is. Adam had that knowledge. And one of the proofs he brings is because we see the same individual, same name can have several individuals with different personalities. One could be a Talmud Chacham, one could be an Amoritz. That's not possible when it comes to Eir. Eir reflects its source. A name does not. Yet, as he concludes, the end of chapter 307, as we shall explain, the root of a name is even higher than Eir. The same thing with Malchus. Malchus is, as he said, is only possible on something that's a stranger outside of you. You say someone's a father is over children. A melech is specifically not over relatives, over something that's apart from you, like a shem. Nevertheless, in Malchus lies something much more powerful than the revelations of Eir. That's a summary. So I'm not going to do the end of the Maimon, I'll just do the Kitzur. And we'll go right to the next Maimon on page 2. So the bottom of Tafresh Chayvav, I'll learn inside. So Kitzur. V'hine Hashem Sheir Meirish Hashosh Mepnei Sheir. The name Sheir, referring to the Sheir, the Adam HaRishon gave a name Sheir, which of course is the Klolos Hamin. It's talking about the species. Its root is in the face of the Shar and the Markova. Eini Yedim Mizeh Mahu Pnei Sheir. You don't know from this what it is. You know that it's rooted there. But what is it? What's a Sheir? Ushu Gvura, and the fact that we know that it's Gvura is not because you know it from the name. You know it from you watch a Sheir on earth, you see it's a powerful Rav Tvuz B'Kerech Shir, so you know that it must be rooted in Gvura and Lamayla. But that's from its function, not from its name. V'zo b'chlos hamin, that's in general species. Al meprotei shem is b'nei adam, eini yedim etzem shalei. Even more so, you don't know the detailed names, let's say, you said Avram, Yitzchak, and so on, you don't know the essence of the person. Mipnei she'Hashem nivdal. That's the bottom line, it's nivdal. A name is separate and apart. U'b'terech kol hu shaykh al chayei shebeguf. And a name in general has a connection not to the soul on its own, but to the soul as it relates to the body. And he brought the proofs. He brought the proof with the different, as I said, the different people have different names, same name, different people. Rashbi, Rabbi Abnuna Saber, Rabbi Akiva, Moshe, they're all the same nitzut, the same source, yet they have different names. And the other way around. Two people can have the same name and be completely different personalities. And he also brought, I looked it up. We were all wondering where it says, Mashashel Nisa'odam Bekivrei Al Shmei. That this comes from a sechta called Chibut HaKever. There's no official source. It's netak in the Shenim, Chachmas HaNefesh. I looked it up. Kafta V'ferach, Reishus Chachma. Shari'ira quotes this thing called Masechta Chibut HaKever.
Oh, they were referring back to this exactly.
Yeah, you know, we find Eitzim Midrashim from Eisenstein. He brings a Masechta Chibut HaChever. It's one of these Midrashim, you know, these. No. It's like a Agoda. It's a Medrash. It's called Medrash. It's called Masechta Chibut HaChever. It's like a Medrash. Like in Medrash, like Medrash Ela Eskara. You know, you have these Midrashim, sort of Amoris. Eisenstein has a thing called Eitzim Midrashim. He brings. Also, there's a sefer called Beis HaMedrash. You see it Seichel in the Sichos often. These Midrashim are like Midrashim from the early years, but they were never collected anywhere. They're Bari Samcha. I mean, Reishis Chachma quotes it. You can trust it that it's coming from a. So there they bring, at the bottom of Tov Reish Chaf Hey. So this is what it says there. It says that when a person dies, the Malach HaMovos comes and asks him what's his name. And if he has Zichur Chaguf, he knows. If not, he forgets. That's why it doesn't say Chibut HaKever. It doesn't say it's Chibut HaKever, but in other places it says. That's why we say the Eisis name, the Pasuk Psukim we say at the end of Shemnesra. The reason for it is this: the Hirot, you know, at the end of Shemnesra we say because we know that we should remember our name when he comes and asks us later.
And when we say Tilim by the Kever,
I didn't see that that's the reason, but it could be that's the same thing. But this, what I just said says. I mean, I looked it up because we were really. It's not a Maimach. It's coming from this Shenim they quote it. The Rebbe in the Kutei Sichos Chelik Yudal has a letter. He says that it's quoted. He says our meaning is to say the psukim, and he says it's quoted in Kitzur Shalah, but he didn't find it there. You know, I mean, it's one of these Kitzur Shalah. Bottom line is the other chiddush that he said that he said was very interesting was he says Obe'inyan Hashroshim Shamaytim Epi Hashmua. That people who have the same name come from the same root.
Where's that?
The parentheses. Yeah, it's a very interesting line as well. We're wondering who Shamaytim Piashmu means, because if it was one of the Rabbein, the Rebbe Rashab would have written, and he heard it from Rebbe. But anyway, to go back here, so we're learning this, Hashem Nivda. So bottom line is, he doesn't bring it here, but I saw in another mind the Rebbe Rashab brings why we give a name. If a child dies before the bris, you still give a name. This is one of the reasons for Tchis HaMesim. So in other words, it's also connected to the guf. Bottom line is bringing proofs that when you say a name, it's not for the neshama alone. It has some connection to the body, to the guf. Huh? Well, that's why the neshama of Moshe, in the body of Rashbi, is not called Moshe. It's called Rashbi. It's a different name, Shimon. Okay. I'll read this already. Bahanal Yuvan, and according to the above, we understand what it says. Anila Deidi Ein Aliyas Amalchus Elekai Hamelach Ba'atzmus. It's referring to the Aliyah, the Matla Maila, the second interpretation. that you're elevating Malchus into Atzmus, V'zel b'Rosh Hashanah HaMelech HaKodesh, Amshachas Sabrina Malchus HaDeh Teshuvah, Zel Amkein Inyan Ani L'Deidi. That's from below up. Then, Achakach V'Dei Dili, V'zel HaDeh B'Rosh Hashanah is Galus HaMalchus.
Are these two independent ideas, name and this other idea?
Alakai HaMelech is teaching his Melech is name. Okay. So we continue. I'll start from the beginning of the line. You stand before all of you together before Hashem from the heads of your tribes and so on. You do it. So knowing that wherever it says Hayim is referring to Rosh Hashanah, the day of Rosh Hashanah. So it says Hayim. Which day is today? Rosh Hashanah. That's when this day. And he counts all the levels of souls of Israel. And says that all these levels of souls, today, Rosh Hashanah, they all stand together, equal. We have to understand the difference between the day of Rosh Hashanah and the day of Matan Torah. The shem Havaya, the shem Hoya Chilukim Madregas. By Matan Torah, they were different. There were different levels. Like Maimon Razal say that Moshe was in one mechitza, was in one section, and Aaron was a separate section, and the Jews were in a third section. But by Rosh Hashanah, kulam b'shav. By Rosh Hashanah, in contrast, they all stood together. Also we have to understand. Once you're saying that they're all staying together, why is it important here to emphasize the different distinctions? The highest, the greatest, the leaders of the tribes, all the way to Chet Veitzecha, the wood choppers, Shem Memecha. What is that? What's this last Sofa? In general, what is Atam Mitzvah Mayim? I'm not sure. He's asked now what's in the Gay the Protim. What's he asking this thing? Atam Mitzvah Mayim? Okay, I'm not sure.
They're all standing today.
Okay, fine. Well, the Haven say Yesh like the Mashnas Barla, the Mashal Koser, and Mimchel the Kai Hamelech. To understand this, we have to preface what was discussed earlier in what it says. That I exalt you like my God, my King, my God, the King. Asher David HaMelech, Omazal, Klol Se'elah. David HaMelech in Tehillim said this on the general world existence. The Sheish Resibus is Avusim, Chayusim, V'kiyum, Mechinas Alakai, HaMelech, Bechinas HaMalchus. David is speaking about the general world, that the root, the cause that brings into being and gives, sustains, and that energizes and sustains the world is from the level of the Kai HaMelech, the level of Malchus. I know. Yeah, in Shaykh Ramuna, Chai is Kiyum V'Yisavos. Yeah. There he says the Lashon, the Shmei Shikleb Lashon Gay is Mechayim, Mekayim, Mahava.
That's what level he brings it, but I don't know it's not.
Yeah. Well, Mechayim Bechlal is Mala, is you know, that is
Mentality.
Right. No, but I'm saying it's like, yeah, Mechayim. Mekayim is keeps it going, sustains it.
That it should exist.
And Mahava is that it should exist.
Mahava makes it the first time exist.
No, we're talking about constantly being Mahava.
That's Mekayim.
No.
Mahava makes it exist. Kiyum gives it, sustains that existence. And Chayis gives it its own, like a Neshama Mal Saguf.
But you have to say, Savas who says that, so Shmei Mahava also Rega, and Kaim called Rega.
You're right, I'll take the Mechayel and Mahava. Right.
Mahava is definitely more, constantly brings it into being. And Kaim is, I guess.
Oh, I'll take the Mechayel now. So then what's Kiyum?
I don't know. It says places what the three are. But it's generally what you said. Yeah, he says. He goes further. He says also sheiros resibus is avusam b'chayis. So that's all through Malchus. What's Malchus? The Melucha who begins his pashtus Hashem belvad melech shmei nikra lei. Melucha. Why is Malchus the force, so to speak, that carries the creative force through Malchus? Because Malchus relates to something outside of itself. If you created the world through Chesed or through Chachma, for example, Chachma relates to you. The person doesn't create. When you're thinking, when you're concentrating on an idea, it's all internally. Even Chesed, which is an emotion, he explains this before, is still, you need others to give Chesed, but you need people that are close to you. It doesn't mean necessarily something that's far distant from you. Malchus insists that it's something that's outside of you completely. He said this in chapter Shin Vav 306. Okay, so that's Malchus. That's the force that carries the creative creation. Like he explained that it's just a name. We don't know anything about the king. We only know that he's a king. This is all a summary of what he said. And the name, the inyan of a name, it's a hidden faculty and a separate from the etzem. As opposed, as he's going to say, Oir. You can't say Oir is nivdal min etzem. Oir is always dovuk to the etzem. A shem can be connected to the etzem, but it's definitely not revealing it. The Zohar has been Oir l'shem.
All other questions of a person, you want to understand the text of the Eibush. So we look at our text and the answer is how we understand the other text. When you talk about shame, I think it's the other way around. If you didn't see the Inyan Hashem by the Eibush as being a koyach by a person, would you say shame is a koyach? It's like we only know that shame is a koyach by a person, that it has some type of power because it's a koyach by the Eibush.
That's not really what he said, but it's an additional point. Here he's speaking more that when you say God, let's say you say God is a king, all you're only doing is, you don't, like you said, when you say God is Abal Chesed, you know something about him. Mahu Cham and Afat Cham. You say God is a king, first of all, you can't even emulate it. It's just, you recognize his authority. You know nothing about him. It's just that he's a melech. That's what he said earlier. I understand what you're saying, but I don't think he means koyach as opposed to, let's say, koyach hachachma. No. He's talking about koyach that's opposed to oir. That's the real distinction. You know, shem is not one of the 10 faculties. Shem is malchus. I mean, malchus is one of the 10 faculties. In that sense, it is.
Why is it Nelim?
Huh?
Why does it koyach Nelim?
It's Nelim and Nivdal. It's both. Because a name does not reveal anything. A name doesn't tell you anything about the thing. You know a name of somebody, let's say Avram, you know nothing about it.
It's Koyach Mamala, right? Shem is Koyach Mamala, it's Malchus, right? So why does it say
it's a summary of what
it's Gilu.
Huh? No, you know nothing about what the thing that has the name. It doesn't reveal anything. Look, let's read on. This is the difference between energy or light. And a name, the Eir is Gili Hanikah v'Nigish. Eir reveals. You see Eir HaNeir, Eir HaShemesh, Eir HaYem, whatever. Eir is a revealing force. It doesn't have anything more than a revealing, but it's a revealing force. It says Gili Hanikah v'Nigish. It's distinguishable and tangible, or Nirgish. Sense, you can sense it. Huli is Davik Ba'etzem, Alkeinu B'chinas Gili. And that's because it's Davik.
Because it's the answer.
Yeah, because Huli is, because it's attached to the source, to the essence, that's why it reveals. For whom Megalas Metzias Etzem, and it reveals the personality or the being of the essence. K'may HaShemesh, Ve'er HaYem, Ve'er HaNeir. Eir HaShemesh, you look at Eir HaNeir, you know it's a flame of a candle. You look at Eir HaShemesh, you know it's a sun. You look at a different, every air reflects what its source is like. The Kol Zoliyes is Davik Ba'etzem. All this is because it's connected, attached to its source. Mashenken Hashem hu behelam. By contrast, the name is concealed, is hidden. She'ein Nikah v'Nigish Klal ve'ein Megalas Etzem.
You mean the name conceals, or the name?
Both. We remember we had hours of arguments about this.
No.
Yeah.
No, there wasn't.
Yes, there was.
How do you want to say the hell? The name is not hidden.
The name is concealed, and it conceals everything about it. Every angle is concealed. There's nothing revealing about a name.
Hmm? What
No.
it presents is concealed. The name is not revealing anything about the
It does.
person.
It's not revealing. It's concealing.
And,
He's saying what it
and both, and it's also
And
concealed.
it's concealed.
Yeah, both. He
You
said
don't know
both.
the name by looking at the thing.
Right.
Is that what you mean?
That's what we discussed. It seemed like you said that. But the more importantly is that from the name you don't know anything else. I mean,
But from the name of the king, meaning from the reputation of the king.
you know, he's a king. You don't know what kind of king. Whether it's let's say, is he a dictator or is he a...
Reputation, Shmoy means his reputation.
no, but that's what Shmei is the way he types Shmei is all you know is your king. That's it. You know nothing about him. I mean, if you do know about him, it's because he revealed something else besides his name. Like, you know, King Nicholas, Tsar Nicholas. What do you know? Was he a Rasha, Tzaddik? If you do know, you know from Pulesa, not from the name. Look again, those that know how to read names, it's a whole different thing. They see Shloshim, we're not talking about that. We're talking about what we see. You don't need to have education. But Eir is Gili. There's nothing else but Gili.
It's the educator.
If a sun didn't have sunlight, or, for example, it would be completely covered up by an eclipse, you don't know it's a sun. You can speculate. The whole thing of light is revealing. To say something is a sun, if you told your child there's a thing called the sun, and you don't say anything more, there's no clue. Is it a frog? Is it an elephant? Is it a luminary? The same name, sun, means nothing. You say, come outside, look up, look. Oh, that's sunlight. The light itself reveals what it is. It's very basic. This is not so...
It tells you about itself, whereas the Shem tells you nothing about itself.
Exactly. Doesn't mean Shem doesn't have power. Anyway, let's continue. Hashem and Hashem behelm. Shem v'nigz ve'ein megalas esa. U'masha Hashem made ala sheirish ha'moker. Hein b'cholos Hashem is k'mosher nesher adam. And what a name shows on is
Signifies.
right. On the source, on the root and source of something, both in the name, general name of a species, like ox, eagle, adam, human. Hein beproti Hashemis, and also in their detailed names, meaning not the species, but individual names. K'moi lezen no likris sher, or lezen no likris chamer. Hey, that's interesting. That's proti. On Shemis, that this one is appropriate, or this is appropriate to call. Yeah, to call to call a ox. This one a chamer. L'chein beproti Hashemis, shein proti Shemis adam k'mei Avram, Yitzchok, Keitzchai, Yaakov, Yibokah. He gave all those examples. Kol ze'ein Hashem megalazes. All this, yes, it reflects this, it shows you in the source, but the name does not reveal.
In other words, the name, whatever that specific name, is because it's connected with something much higher.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that the name is revealing.
Exactly, like when you tell your child the word sun, yes, Shemesh, if you study the Shloshim, you'll find out a Shemesh is because Shemesh Mogen Hashem Elokim, whatever. But by saying Shemesh, you're not revealing anything. You're just saying. So in other words, the name isn't just. He's not saying it's not a name. He says it's not a Shem Haskami. That's the key.
It's not the scripture.
It's not just a nickname or a name. You know, we just call it by a name. A name is very significant, but it doesn't reveal. Just because it's significant doesn't mean it reveals. Hainu lefisha Hashem univdul min ha'etzem, and that's because the name is separate from the etzem, from the essence. The Eir yeshi dovek be'etzem hariu gili u'megalas etzem. Eir, which is attached, is a revelation, but it reveals the etzem, the essence meaning the name, the thing called by that name. Hashem the yeshi nivdul min etzem hariu helam be'ein megalas etzem. The name, being separate from the essence, is concealed and does not reveal. Let me just make, just for context purposes. Remember, Ayin Beis is the book of interfaces. So all this is part of the interface, obviously. Eir reveals the source. Shem is relevant, is necessary for us to be able to exist and be a part. And ultimately, obviously, these two have to come together. So Eir and Shem is like a new way of defining the interface. Malchus is like, so to speak, brings the kayach, the key, to our terms. There's a reason, even though he doesn't say it specifically, there's a reason why Malchus because there's no way existence could exist if it didn't have this concealment. If everything came from Meir, we would never be able to really be an entity apart.
How would you say they're the same? In what respect are they the same?
But respect they're the same is at the end of the day, when you say Hoyehu Shmei Belvad, as he said, if God has a name, generally speaking, a name means that God manifested in something outside of the essence. So shem is a manifestation. And when he said earlier, remember he said, Eir Legaba Atzmus, see sunlight, Eir reveals sun, because sun doesn't have anything else besides light. Atzmus is not limited to being a moyer. So in essence, even Eir Ein Sof, he said before, is also to get the shem. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really reveal. But then he said that it reveals even that part that's not a moyer. I mean, the point is, essentially, you see this, as Ayin Beis especially, there was a Torah mitzvahs. Mitzvahs is like a shem, it touches the essence, but doesn't reveal. When you learn Torah, you understand God's mind. You do a mitzvah, unless you learn the Kavanos mitzvahs or the timing mitzvahs, but with doing a mitzvah, you're fulfilling the Ratzon. It's more like a shem experience, I mean, relatively speaking. And when you learn Torah, it reveals. Hashem understand. This is what I did. This is what I'm saying. That, it's a revelatory experience. I mean, the sugi is the beginning here. So let's continue. Shin Ches.
How do you explain before Yitzchok is Ketzchai? How do you say you explained this before? What's Ketzchai?
First of all, the letters. The letters Yitzchok is Ketzchai.
Yeah.
I believe it's from the Arizal. What did he say? Did he explain it before?
He just said it.
He just said it. He doesn't say it.
He didn't explain it.
No, he explained Yaakov. Yibaka Bikia said. If I recall from my memory serves me right, there is the Rebbe spoke the 80th anniversary of Temchet Minim, was Tovshin Lamed Zayin. Chayel, so he brings Kate's Chai. And I think what he says there, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, he connects it to the Kaleb also. But he says there, it touches Kate's Chai. I have to look it up. I remember.
Sarah was not supposed to have children. And then Yitzchak eventually is born.
It would be nice to say that Ketz for Golish. I don't
know. I don't want to guess. You know what? Do you have a good to see if Kelly Kedal is here? Give me a Kelly Kedal. Since you asked me, let's already look. The point that he wants to make is he wants to bring that all the names of Avram Yitzchak Yankov, the letters Avram, Kates Chai, and Yibaka, that the letters themselves, Kelly Kedal. Yeah. Okay. I eat frag, darf man suchen, darf man gucken. That's where I remember it. See, the Kabbalah will go to the source. I get it from here. As every the Ragachover, the new psukim from Shas, from Rambam, whatever. Chayel, right? I said Chayel. Yeah, it was a Merzik of Avringen then. Those are those are the prime years. I remember everything those years. After that, it was downhill. Chayel, Dvar, right? Where is it? You for sure bring something about Kates Chayel. I remember 100%. Yeah, Shmenim Shana. Let's see.
We have yet to have a decent left there for the whole service.
Yeah.
Everything left.
Oh, Kates Chayel. No? At least I remember. He says here like this: Lahoyer sheshmei arishon shel krei dushas meir v'chami hamanal pel shel temchim Yosef v'bchinas Yisod Yisod gematria pei v'kein shem hasheni Yitzchak Kates Chai Yisod shusiyim v'Kates Aguf.
Yitzchak is in itself Yisod, or only because the case of Yitzchak?
No, Yitzchak itself is Kates Chai Yisod. It's siyim v'Kates Aguf. Ayin l'kutetei l'Arizal Pasha Vayeh. Vayera Eitz Chaim Shalom and Al Peri Gimel. Yosef, you can say Eitz Chaim Shalom. Can say Eitz Chaim. Anyway, it looks like it says Siyum v'Kates Haguf. Why this is Yitzchak, I'm not sure. But Siyum v'Kates Haguf. That's what it says.
What's the law?
He never wrote this order.
What does it mean?
That's the thing. That's what, yeah. Well, anyway, yeah. So we just basically the question was just transferred from Ayin Beis to I'll look it up, and I guarantee you I'll come back and look it up. Unless you want to look it up, Hostel Kutei Larid, no.
I have the English one. The apples in the orchard.
No. Okay. Fine. You'll be able to sleep tonight without knowing, or you need an answer right away?
That's okay.
So let's continue chapter 308, Shinches. What do you think about the Rebbe Rasham? Aziz? Huh? Okay. Shinches. V'hinei kamoshen v'zbara hefresh ben shem ve'er l'mayla. And now, just like we explained, the difference between a name and energy above or light. Hainu b'chayes aleki be'elam is v'nivroim. What does it mean l'mayla? He's spelling out what he means by l'mayla. L'mayla means in the energy, the divine energy that is within the worlds and the creatures. So as he said, Alekai HaMelech is shem, and that's the difference, and the difference between them and how they bring chayes. So one of them reveals, one of them is conceals, one is separate, one is attached. Kamoikeinu ba'adam ben shem v'chayes. The same thing in the human being, lamata, in other words, in us, there's a difference between a name and life energy, life force. So now he's basically saying Oyer is like chayes and shem is shem. Chayes hanefesh, meaning the life force. You see a human being is alive. The arms are moving, legs are moving, the mind is working, the heart is beating, etc., etc. This is a revelation that's niked, it's recognizable, v'nirgish, and sensed. Very clear. Everybody senses, feels this chayes. Now he's talking about a healthy human being. You see it through mobility, through movement, through whatever it is that we call life. So in the present parentheses, v'niked boy shul chay.
Not only he senses it on his own.
No, they didn't say that. Hakol margishin, that's everybody. He's saying something else. No,
he's alive.
no, right? No. Nikul boy shehu chai. In addition to seeing chayes, you see that he's a live entity. That's what he's adding here. He's seeing a live entity. Gam beis hashin nikul shu chai. In other words, even during sleep, you recognize that he's alive. Another thing, life force, it also reveals the etzem, shu etzem chai u'b'chinas chayes atzmi. Let me explain what that means. It says in places sometimes the word expression chai, the etzem chai lahachis. Right? You could argue, for example, when you see a stone flying, is it a flying stone? Does the stone become a flying stone? No, we know. But someone doesn't know that what's behind it. You could think, hey, the stone is alive. It's like a bird. But we know it's not. You can just see when it falls. So you can't call it chai betzim. You call it some outside force imposed itself on the stone, which usually is affected by gravity, that it should defy gravity. And when that chai stops, it weakens, or it ends, the stone falls. A human being, even a halacha, chai neses atzmei, a human being is not just that there's life force inside him. It reflects that there's a fundamental, he's fundamentally alive. The body is not like a stone that just lasts for 70, 80, 120 years. The body is actually coming alive because the soul is a chai betzim, has real source of life. The stone, you just took your koyach hazrika, your power, and you put it in the stone.
Words,
you can't call the stone a bird. A bird, for example, when you see a bird flying, you could say it has a nefesh that allows it to fly. A shir doesn't fly. A human.
The effect of the nefesh on the guf is not like a effect of a person's energy being inserted into the stone.
But more than that, the fact that you see a person alive shows that he's a chai, that shehu be'etzem chai, b'chinas chayis atzmi. What's doing to etzem chai and chayis atzmi? Darf man verstehen?
The nefesh is the etzem chai, not the guf.
Not the guf.
So the guf is the
But
same.
when you see chayis, it reveals
the
that there's etzem chai. When you see chayis, when you see a life force, you see that they're alive, it reveals that there's that the nefesh is a chai be'etzem.
Why can't you say that the guf is
V'gam ha'chayis megalas etzem shu etzem chai b'chinas chayis atzmi. Etzem chai means it's fundamentally alive. It's just a fundamental. And chayis atzmi is that the life itself, the life force is that.
The same as
We're not talking about the guf, we're talking about the chayis. What kind of chayis is
yeah,
it?
but the guf is the same as the stone.
No, it's not.
Essentially,
It's not.
Why?
Because
The guf is
you see.
the same as the stone.
So what you're saying to me is that when you see a human being walk around, it's just like a stone, and therefore,
The chayis a nefesh is machayis a guf.
no.
Can I understand? It's very interesting. I've been reading this book
Go ahead.
about cellular biology.
Yeah,
This is how he defines life.
yeah.
Because life, distinct from something else, is self-perpetuating. It has an intrinsic ability to recreate itself all the time, always new.
Correct. It's like an engine.
Versus a unified like that, like a stone.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly correct.
That's what he calls the definition of life.
It's very clear. Look, when you see, I mean, I gave an example, but there's many examples. When you see how a person is alive, you understand that there's some engine here that has life in it, and that's what it reveals. That's what he's saying. Gama chayis megalas etzem. Etzem chai, because chayis atzem.
by a truck. The trailer has no.
Right, the trailer is, something else.
Correct.
It's not. So the person doesn't know, sees it going on the highway, thinks that it has some sort of.
And does not reveal that it's a chai be'etzem. Exactly.
And a person has self-propelling.
In other words, there are fuels that just fundamentally will have a nature of giving off energy, and there are things that don't have that nature. The chayis adam that you see a human being.
The chayis moving the stone.
What are we like splitting hairs? It's not clear. That's what is it? It's simple. You see a person's alive, you know that there's a force called chai be'etzem. You know that there's an engine here.
And it's not a force in something that's external from it.
Right.
The two things are intrinsically
Exactly.
bound.
He doesn't say the intrinsically bound, but it's clear that that's how it works. In other places, it makes it very clear that the nefesh is misnabish in the body, not like in a stone. It's absolutely, they're completely bound together as one.
The only difference between the guf and the stone is the guf is the nefesh is melubash b'guf, and the chayis which moves the stone is not melubash b'stone, but it comes from
Does this-
it
does
comes from a nefesh.
Does it change the
comes-
does it change the pshat here? What are you saying now? What are you saying now? Does it change what it says here? That's the question. I gave an example. The example doesn't work for you. Don't use the example. But the bottom line is that the chayis, he's adding now a new thing. First he said that chayis, you see it. Okay? The second thing he said, chayis reveals the source of this energy. This source of energy is etzem chai, b'chinas chayis atzmi.
Just want to elaborate.
Yeah. The chayis atzmi nesa beis inyanim. Chayis atzmi. Remember, chayis atzmi means that it itself is a self-generating force of energy. It does not require something else. Now, of course, you can start saying, 1 second, if you don't eat, the chayis of the soul is is not gonna sustain a person.
That's only the fuel.
Yeah, exactly. But
Yep.
Itself.
okay. The chayis atzmi nesa beis inyanim. It carries two things. The first thing, it's not just an expression and an extension of energy. And the second thing, that it's not at all the level of transmission and revelation. It's a subtle difference between these two. Bottom line is, when you say something is an atzmi, I think we need to explain. Atzmi means that it's not defined by its expression, it's defined by its personality. I'm trying to find an example. Yeah, the stone is a good example. When you take a stone and throw it, it's only spashtus achayis that you're putting in it. And the best proof is that it's gonna the stone does not become a bird. A bird flies.
It's expressing the spashes of another kind.
When a bird flies, it has the nature of a flying. It's like has a flying power.
The stone has no mechanism to fly. There's no mechanism to fly. No matter how much food or energy or fuel you put into it, it can't fly.
Let's continue. Let's see how it goes. This okay, fine. So one is not an extension,
That's the first one, changing spashes.
and the second that it's not at all in any form of gili, because etzem bilti mizgara. Let's see. The hispashtus hachayish ubchinas ha'orash ubchinas chayis lahachis. When we talk about the expression of energy, or the hispashtus, the extension of energy, that's a reflection that's the energy to make something chayis, give energy to something else. One second, no, but it's more than that. It comes into a form of manifest and tefisa, meaning it's Islam. It's in some internalized way. Ba'atzmi, this is the first thing. Atzmi einu b'chinas hispashtus, and atzmi is not in the form of extension. And the chai b'etzem lo b'chaim hispashtus. Like Lamaila, we call him Chai v'lei b'chaim. Is that an expression somewhere? Chai v'lei b'chaim. I know there's a Chakim v'lei b'chochma t'yidiyah. The Chai v'lei b'chaim. You ever hear some of that? And Chai b'etzem lo b'chaim b'hispashtus. I'll explain it, but I want to read first because there's different places explains this. Let's just read on parentheses. Val derech k'mo hiyuli. Hayuli. We never got a real translation for Hayuli. It's a potential amorphous, a nebulous state.
It's a Greek word.
Yeah. It comes from the word, I don't know the root of the word, but it comes from something that is, one example for Hayuli he uses often is Keich HaMaskil. Like the source of all seichel comes from a place, you can't call it seichel, but all seichel comes from there. Hayuli is usually a potential state. In quantum mechanics is definitely the state of probability before it becomes a defined state. But Keich Hayuli would be a state where it's still like, example would be maybe a seed. It's concentrated.
The spark in the stone. The spark in the stone.
But the spark doesn't have potential of anything. The spark is a spark.
No, there's no spark in the stone.
No, but that's not the point. But Hayuli is more than just concealed. Hayuli is a potential for many different scenarios.
Well, the stone is a potential for a spark.
No, that's one spark. No, Hayuli would be a seed.
Has within it a potential for
Yeah, but that's not Hayuli. No, the Hayuli is like example would be a seed.
It could be like you see in clothing. Everything has in it the potential to be everything.
It's an example.
Well, it's a teamwork.
But it's something which
Keich Hayuli comes from Platonic philosophy. That's the truth. He talks about the Dal Yuseidus, the four elements. So you say the Eish in that state, it's more, they're archetypes. Archetype. It's an archetype of fire.
But for fire, the man is saying something different. That's an archetype for fire.
But he calls it Keich Hayuli, Keich Eish. Keich Hayuli Sheb Asher. Keich Eish, Hayuli Sheb Eish. It's like, in other words, Eish in its source. Anyway, let's continue. Shubchinis Hamshachin Elomo Liis Mimenu Bchinis Hagili Beis Pashtus. Keich Hayuli is a Hamshachin Elomo. It's a concealed transmission. Lies Mimenu Bchinis Hagili Beis Pashtus. From it will come a revelation and extension. But the Yuli itself is not yet in the form of Hispashtus. I want to find an example. There must be a good example for this.
Which one would be the fire and the tungsten? Which one?
Okay, fine. So from it will come a Gili, but meanwhile it's not. But it is pnimi. Similarly, you could explain the idea of life, but not an extended, not an expressed form of life. I guess when you say, just for an argument's sake, when you say something has, I'm just using engine as an example, but an engine, its engineering is such that it can generate power. I'm not getting down to fuel, etc., etc. It generates power. So even if it's not right now on, let's say, and actually generate, the switch is off, that's a chai be'etzem. I mean, it's not, I can't call an engine a chai be'etzem, but example, it's not dispastus. In other words, it's defined because it is the power to give energy. It's an energy generator.
The water has the power to give electricity. The energy has the power to give electricity. Can you use that somehow?
Yeah, you could. In other words, basically, he's trying to explain.
Channeling energy that exists. The water follows it, energy exists.
No, what he's trying to explain is.
Let's say the water's not flowing right now.
He's trying to explain is that you could have, for example, someone sees. Let's for argument's sake say, electricity is generated in a source somewhere. It comes through wires, and if your child asks you, someone asks you, if I, God forbid, I touch a live wire, I'm going to get a shock. So you say, this wire is the source of energy? You say, no, the wire is just is extending energy that's coming from somewhere. And someone say, where's the source? You go to the source, you may not even see energy, but it has the power to generate a certain amount of energy. So you could say a soul, before it comes into the body, has the power to give chayes. When it comes in the body, you see it. Or another example, God forbid, a person, let's say, is in a vegetative state, a coma. So you look at the person, you don't see a life force. But that doesn't mean the soul doesn't have the power to give life. For some reason, the body's unable to receive it now. What I'm trying to say is you could have a thing that's called hispashtus achayis, and chay lahachis does not compel us to say it's chay be'etzem. Just because it's giving life. The Rebbe wrote a letter many years ago, I remember it was a Rosh Hashanah letter, he explained the difference between chay lahachis, chay be'etzem, that a chay be'etzem always has the power to make other people come alive. A chay lahachis does not necessarily, it can be alive itself, but it can't make something else come alive.
Means to make something else.
No, because it means chay lahachis really means chay be'etzem, it's in the state of chay lahachis. It's the chay. In other words, for example, a neshama can bring your body alive, but you touch somebody else that's not alive, you're not going to bring them alive. Chay be'etzem could do that. Chay be'etzem could bring alive somebody. They sometimes would say the difference between a beinoni and a tzaddik and Tanya. At the end of the day, a beinoni, according to Tanya, is old machshava de gramaisa. He's like a tzaddik. Over then, he has a battle. The bottom line in action, what's the difference? Nafkamina between a beinoni and a tzaddik. So I once heard that the difference is a beinoni cannot make someone else become a beinoni, and a tzaddik can make someone else become a beinoni. Because in other words, it's not just that you have power. The question is, do you have enough power to actually give another person power? And that is a chai be'etzem. Only a chai be'etzem can do that. In other words, the neshama is a chai be'etzem, and talking about the context of giving life, but it doesn't have the power to give someone else life.
The beinoni is tied up. You can't remove fire things. It's how they couldn't remove fire.
Yeah, okay. So bottom line is
That's different than saying something that you did before.
I'm just giving examples. I'm trying to explain the difference between something that's an extension of energy as opposed to the source of energy. He doesn't say those words exactly, but it's a way to understand what means chai be'etzem. Okay, so one second. So bottom line, what he said was like this: Chai be'etzem, chayis atzmi, has two things. One, that it's not about extension of energy; it's about the source of energy. And that it on its own is not really in a state of transmission. The question I'm having is what's the difference between Hamshach and Gili and Hispashtus? It's the same thing. Because there's a distinction. I can't figure out, maybe he's going to spell it out. Okay. I mean, generally speaking, when you speak in Chassidus, you say someone's an atzmi or someone's a primi, someone's an atzmi and someone's a chitzon. What you're saying is, you can look at somebody, for example, The Rebbe brings it with the Mittler Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe Davin, you saw the Goli, his spirals. The Mittler Rebbe, not the Alter Rebbe was an Atzmi, also Begili. The Mittler Rebbe was only an Atzmi, so he Davin, you couldn't tell anything. That doesn't in any way mean that it's not that within, essentially, was in a very deep level. So an Atzmi is somebody does not have to express himself. And someone has to tell you that they're great.
The Rebbe says in terms of Atzmi? What are you saying?
No, he said it as an Atzmi. He says an Atzmi. Yeah, an Atzmi is something that has it.
When the Rebbe says Rebbe says in terms of Atzmi.
Yeah, no, he didn't say the Alter Rebbe is not an Atzmi. He just said that Mittler Rebbe was an Atzmi.
There's a story about it, that the Barditchever came to see the Mittler Rebbe, and he saw nothing's happening. So he asked Alter Rebbe, so Alter Rebbe said, if the Mekane is Mekane the Avodah of the son, that he could do it in a way that he doesn't even have to hide it because he's so connected with it.
In other words, an Atzmi, when it says, sometimes the Lashon is Atzmi bilti mizgal or Atzmi bilti mispashut. An Etzem, by definition, is not an expressor. Now, the question is how then an Etzem expresses itself is another story. But fundamentally, an Etzem is not its expression. So as soon as, for example, a person starts telling you I'm smart, you know it's not that he's an Atzmi. Because if he's an Atzmi, he's enough to tell you. You know, or if he tells you I'm cool, like that. An Atzmi is just it. It's just the real thing. And so that's what he's saying here. So even when he is mispashet, that's not his essence. Top of page, Tofresh Chavches. Chai Betzin Lei B'chaim Beis Pashtus. Oh boy. Okay. Nevertheless, he's saying even though it's a Chai, right. Even though it's Chai Betzim, it's still not the essence itself. That which does not expand does not mean that it's not that it's the essence itself. It means that there's an essence. Then there's the Etz Chai Be'etzem, which is a state where even within himself, it's not in any form of expression or extension. But it's still not the essence. So in other words, we really could say that this entity has three levels. There's the essence of the entity. There's the essence of its life force. That is not yet in any form of extension. And then there's this pashtus, when it extends. The kols are moving, and all this is understood from the chayes hamispashut. The bottom line is all chayes reveals all this. When you see something that's alive, let's say like a human being, you know from it, besides that it itself is a revealing force. Life is recognizable. You can see something's alive. It also reveals things to you. In other words, he's saying he's bringing two ways that it reveals. One is that it itself is it reveals. Life is visible. Doesn't use that expression here.
Okay. That's what.
And the second thing?
Look, it says even when you're asleep.
The second thing?
1 second. And then the second thing is that the chayes actually reveals things about its source. It reveals that it's a chai be'etzem, and it also reveals that it's not atzmus mamish. The calls are moving my chayes mispashit. So in other words, chayes mispashit is telling you about things about its source. It's revealing things to you. The machai shabab b'chinas mispashit is revealing on the yedim sha'atzmus shalei ain't be'ifin kol zeh. In other words, it's paradoxical. But the fact that it's such a life force tells you that the source, the etzem, is not in this. It is not. Is that on the yedim sha'atzmus essence is not in this form. Kim she'ena b'chinas pashtus.
How does seeing it alive tell you that?
That's what I spoke before. It tells you to you.
It's alive tells you something about that it's not within its pashtus. How do you see this?
That's why I gave the example of the stone. Because, okay, let's go back to the wire. If you see electricity generated into an appliance, So if you don't know anything, someone will say, you know what, this light bulb maybe is just a self-generating energy.
So,
And it's not self-generating energy. And if you study it, you'll know that. Basically, that's what he's saying. That you can see from the force of the way it's giving off energy, you can tell that its source is not what you're seeing. There's something much more behind the scenes.
he says, you can see she'enu b'bekinis ispashtus.
The source is not that.
Sources.
Yeah. That the source
Okay.
is, in other words,
Okay.
what it tells you is that there's a source of energy. Let's start with that. And it tells you this source is not like what you're seeing.
If you see a hot spring,
In other words, there's no question. I'll explain for sure. Look at a human being that's alive. It's a miracle. What is life? What happened exactly? Egg was fertilized by seed. Suddenly you see a thing growing. And it's growing. And then suddenly, pop, it emerges as a child. And now here, look at us. Well, it's a complete mystery. It's clearly, someone says to you, like, let's say a scientist will say, no, it's simply nothing. It's just that you're alive. It clearly, the source is not what you're seeing. There's no way you can just explain this and say that this is just, energy happened to jump in that. That's why I said a stone, you use your strength, you throw a stone. Someone looks at the stone flying, you say, well, wait a second, and you'll see there's nothing really here. When you look at a human being living, heart beating, the way we live, the way we're alive, reflects that there's a source of energy is no way similar to what you're seeing. In other words, it's more than the sum of the parts. You look at a human being and life force inside a person, it's not. It's in no way. It's not superficial, and you're dealing with a source of life. And the truth is, let's answer this question. The heart, you can say, okay, the heart is structured. So what is making the heart pump all the time? What exact life force is making that heart pump every second, contract and expand? Clearly, it's not the same energy that you're seeing. That's the bottom line. Energy reveals that its source is different. He's not elaborating, but this is...
Well, if you answered the question, you probably get it very clear, right? If you stated the biological, it's just electrical impulses.
Yeah, but even that tells you
That's
this.
totally different than what you're seeing.
Also, exactly, it's also different.
That's what I'm saying.
So the same thing, in other words, the flow of energy, but the interesting thing that he's really saying here, that chayes has this air element in it. Energy reveals a source. That's the bottom line. So if someone said to you, you know what, there's no such thing as a sun, all I see is sunlight, there's no sun. You say, that's ridiculous. This light tells you it's coming from somewhere. Because light doesn't have, it's revealing that there is a source. Shem, is going to say, doesn't do that. You see a name of something, it means nothing. Yeah, you know the thing has a name, but you don't know that it has a source. You don't see the source. That's clearly what he's saying.
more than what the
So in other words, bottom line is, one of the proofs that the Chavos Alavavos brings for existence, for God, is that we see a life force. Well, forget about now the organization of life. Not even talking about that. So just mere fact, like it says, what's the lashon there? The galgal something cannot turn itself. If you see a wheel turning, there's no way that it's turning itself. Something has to be turning it. And since something is turning it, you have to say what's turning it is more powerful than the turn itself, because it's giving it that type of life. That, in other words, so the life force that we see revealed as a chai be'etzem somewhere. For sure. That's the bottom line.
So go to Frank Roosevelt, you can't pick yourself up by the collar. So there's just for you.
Ein chovish materes atzmei is a lashon chazal. Okay. For oidzes, and another thing Chayes reveals to us. So far we have two things. Chayes itself is revelatory. It's a revealing force, meaning rather it's visible, and you can sense it. And two, it reveals to us deeper dimensions of the source. For oidzes, in addition to this, on yedim is shaloi hoya shaloi ze ikra atzmus pasha eina b'chinas pashtus. He's going even further. So the first thing it reveals that the etzem is not a hispashtistic force; it's a fundamental force. Now he's saying, in addition, it reveals that this is not the primary role of Atzmus, that he's not extends himself. It even goes further. Ki ma she'enei b'chinas hamshocha klal.
That's the fundamental thing.
Yeah, he's saying, in other words, it's not just negating that he's not this. But he's an essence, he's an entity that's all onto his own. He's speaking in very abstract terms. But earlier there's the expression that when you see that Moshe comes from Atzmos, so you know there's a moyer within Atzmos. But then you learn that the moyer does not reflect Atzmos because that's not the primary role of Atzmos to be a moyer. Here he's saying it a little differently. Here he's saying that in addition to what it reveals to us that the etzem is built to mispasha, that the etzem does not expend itself, is that he's saying even more. That the etzem's primary role is not that it doesn't extend itself. It's not like that's its main achievement. It is itself, it's fundamentally a different level completely. Why is it, I mean, it seems to me that he's trying to say that it's not even chai, it's not even necessarily, its primary role is not even to give off energy.
The sun shines, but doesn't care where it shines. But B'Chol Mamash, it shines. Here, in a sense, it doesn't even shine. Is that what it means?
One second, let me continue. So we see from this that chai is gili, is revelation, when Megalas etzem, and also reveals its source. Okay. This line is a little very, very abstract. I think I would interpret the line two ways. One thing is like this.
It doesn't mean it's Megala, the etzem.
You could say
it shows the etzem, shows that there is an etzem, not that you know anything about what the etzem is. When it says here, Megala etzem, doesn't mean it's Megala that the etzem exists. So you can't see the etzem.
But a line before he said, we do know what what kind of etzem it is.
Nobody knows what the etzem is.
He says here that we do know something.
Where?
You know, read a few lines before. No, it doesn't say that only it exists. He says on what kind of form it is. Hold on. What I think he's saying is the following. Here's the two levels here. One is like Yediyas HaShlila and one is Shlila B'etzem. Is the expression. Like this. We said that the life force itself tells you that the source is not like me. It's not like the extension. The source is not extended energy, it's fundamental energy. But you could still say that's its primary function. Is that it's not hispashtus, it's an etzem. He's adding now that you can't say either. The Chayes is telling us that there's something in the etzem that's beyond even the fact that it's not just an extension.
And what is that? Is that
Yeah.
what it is?
Yeah. No, I'm going to explain. I'm going to explain to you. I'm not going to explain. Energy shows that there's a source that's not like the energy itself. Because if it was, it doesn't say it here, but if it was, it wouldn't be able to give energy. To make something come alive, the source has to be more powerful than the thing that the life it's giving it. Okay? So that essence is a atzmi, not a spashtus. But the question is like this. He's not saying this specifically here, but I'm sure that he's alluding to it because he said it 2 chapters before. Why can't we say, for example, that God, all he is a creator of existence? All he is a creator of existence. Yes, I agree, creator is not a creation. Creation is an extension, and a creator is an essence. Creations can't create. A creator can create, but that's it. That's what he is. So what does creation reveal to us? That God is a creator. What is energy? Reveal to us that the source of energy is not energy. It's an essential state of being that gives off energy, but nothing more. But Chassidus proves that that's not enough, because if that's the case, he's still somewhat relationship with it, and therefore can't really bring something into being. So you have to say that Atzmos is even beyond being a source of energy. Before he says it in the words of he's not a moyer. But you understand the proof for it? Huh? The
That's
proof
what
for
he
it.
means that he's not making some shachas.
So he says, no, read it right at the beginning. Machayis, we know a new thing now.
That's not the name.
In other words,
That's the name.
yeah. Let's go back to a 2 page. Let's go back a few pages. Let's go back to page 624. No, because he's saying almost the same issue is there. 624, okay? Look at these lines. I'm going like 2/3 down. There's a line that begins, you see that? Almost one word for word. Nikr v'nikr. Listen to this. From energy, we know the greatness of the source. Okay. If you do it to call listen to this now. Now look at the next parenthesis.
It isn't done.
That says the loize iker alakus. You see the same notion, loize iker. Not the primary thing of alakus is not what air comes from it. That means the primary thing of atzmus is not that it gives off energy. The atzmus neisha b'atzmi kavyochel kamenyom shleimus galaklal. So if you say, let's say, a generator of energy, here's the proof.
Right.
When you look at electricity in a wire, you look at electricity in a wire, right? You know that there's a source that's not like the electricity you're seeing. Someplace a source for this energy. But you could argue that's all that you know. That's all there is. There's a source that's not espashtus. Okay, but then comes the question, so how does that source get energy from? The answer is there's an etzem that's not even energy. And that has the ability to have a lot of things in it, plus also the ability to give off energy.
That's what he means.
Because you're only carrying over the question. You know, there's the Chelam story that they saw the car moving. He says, no, a horse isn't pulling it. How's it moving? He says, a car behind it is pushing it. What's pushing that car? Another car. And the last car? That's a technicality. I forgot to ask. If you see something's moving, you know something's moving it. This is. But then questions: who's moving the first mover? So if God is just a source of a generator of energy, you could ask the question: who created God, so to speak? So you have to say that Atzmus is not bound, is completely beyond energy altogether. He's a completely different type of entity. He's not just not hispashtus, which is the first stage, that he's something fundamentally else. And this is what he's saying. He's just, it's all so short in the word. That's why.
So that's what he means by the words, ain't of it, but what
Right.
it really is,
Right.
ain't of it, some shop.
Yeah.
And he's only a byproduct.
That's what he knows.
In a sense, yeah. But the point is, all this energy is revealing. Look, he's in other words, if you really were honest and analyzing life, the life force inside of a human being, and a scientist tells you, you know something, it's just like electricity. Don't kid yourself, there's no third partner. The seed got fertilized, an egg got fertilized, now it's alive. But if you start thinking about it, somebody tell me, there's a generator of electricity, some electricity is in here. That has the power to create a life like we know it. There has to be something that's giving that power to the electricity. What? You can't just say, it's like, they say, they go all the way back to a ball of gas. Okay, fine. It all evolved from a ball of gas. But who put the ball of gas there? They're always stuck. So you have to come to a conclusion. If you don't want to ask the question, who created the creator, you have to say the creator is completely not in the same category of Metzias than anything we can understand.
That's how they answer.
So it's not just because all you're doing is transferring the question. You're saying, okay, it's not Hispashtus Eir, it's Etzem Eir. But Etzem Eir has also got its. How'd that come from? Where'd that come from?
They answered. They say it didn't come from it.
No,
Just like you're saying God.
No, they say that's metaphor. That's not in the realm of science.
So the answer is exactly the same.
That it came from.
Just like God is not created, so that wasn't created either. It was always. The primordial soup is always.
Okay.
It's eternal, with no source.
Fine. I'm not getting to debate with that. I know what they say. So the question is, which one makes more sense?
So whatever they call it that.
It's God.
The Alter Rebbe raised up. He said in Tanya. Tanya, he says very nicely. He says, anything you don't understand, you call teva. Basically, you call nature. That's it. It's nature. It's the nature of things. What should I do?
What do you call it God?
Okay. Anyway, all this chayes is megala.
As long as we have a question, God will be alive, right?
Hashachayes is giving megala setzim. It's basically through extrapolation, which is called Yedias Hashlila. Like you say, does God have wisdom? Well, if we have wisdom, he must have wisdom. But then you conclude, if he has wisdom like we have wisdom, how did he give us wisdom? So you have to say, he has wisdom. The only reason we say that because you can't say he doesn't have. So it's like saying he does not have wisdom. But then you say, is that all he is? Not our wisdom? You have to say, no, he has something far beyond that. That's why you can put it all in place. There's no question that if you go that way, you have to come to the conclusion that the essence of God is a completely different type of existence. That's how we conclude it. Because there's no way, or else you're just ending up just pushing the transferring the question to the source.
Mishnah has that gap.
The answer, the way why we can't accept primordial soup forever, because there is no forever. Any gvul has to end up having a beginning, because there's no such thing as bli gvul gvulim. Finite numbers can never lead to infinite. So what they do is they say it's so long, it's almost infinite, but finite can never lead to infinite. There always is a beginning to the finite set of numbers. So billion, trillion, I don't care, whatever you go, you have to get to some beginning. That's the argument by the Torah argument about why you can't say it's that time is forever. Look, it's like the story with the dog. By the time you get to the billion back there, you're so worn out you don't even ask what before. But we Jews do. We've been around. We're not interested. Like they say, what's the earth stand on? The back of a turtle. The turtle's on the back of an elephant. The elephant's on the back of another elephant. Another elephant. You keep on going and going. By the time you're 120, you forget to ask the final question. What's the final elephant standing on? That's the bottom line. Okay. One thing is clear. Life is a mystery. That's for sure. How a baby is born and turns into a complex adult like us is absolute mystery. No way. It's just some electricity flying around. Right, Mayor?
Doesn't even make sense. Look at us.
Einstein's greatest line, I think, is what he says.
Would be normal. Something normal.
Yeah.
How much crazy?
Einstein's greatest line was, he said, the most unreasonable part of existence is that it's reasonable.
Yeah.
Why would it make sense? You know how many odds that something shouldn't make sense? It's billions and billions of reasons that shouldn't make sense, and it makes sense. There's a logic.
We should have said that.
Okay. V'hagam shagilei achayis v'ayidei Hashem. That's Eir. That's Chayis.
Yep.
So Chayis reveals and Shem conceals. However, the question is V'hagam, even though we say that the revelation of Chayis, of life, is through the name. We said that before, that the name is what binds. What's this? What's the sound? Does anyone understand the sound? What's that? Okay. Live with the sound. I hope it doesn't mean the whole thing is. Huh?
Battery can charge?
What battery?
Laptop.
Not that. It's an
It's plugged
electricity.
in right now?
Not electricity, it's getting nervous.
It's jumping
Giving
around.
its source.
Can you shut up this sound, do me a favor? I didn't mean that to the audience that's listening to this. No, I have to say anything, but someone will write to me and say, wait, would you tell me to shut up? Look, the problem with this is a one-way street. They see you, they don't see that. So, for all I know, somebody's singing a bubble bath and is watching the Ayin Beis.
I think she just said.
You're broadcasting
Send
live?
it.
You're broadcasting?
It's not live, but it's going to be broadcast.
I think she felt like it this time.
Huh?
I think she felt like she just let go
Okay.
of stuff.
Is there someone out there or not? Tell me. We're waiting to know. Is there life out there?
Oh,
If there's life out there, just nod your head.
It's not
Send
my
us a
function.
message.
I don't reveal
Send
anything.
us a message.
I
Huh?
reveal- That's not my function as life, to reveal anything.
Okay. Rabbi Rashab. Man, he's really taking us on the trip. V'hagam shegilei achayis v'ayidei Hashem. And even though we just learned before, or the revelation of Chayis is through the name. V'Hashem ad yukei achelim ve'ein achayis ve'ech achayis ugili.
Once you bring in
Here's a new question, because he's speaking about the difference in Shem and Chayis.
Yeah,
He asked the
It
question.
sounds a lot
sure
like-
with the sound, the louder you speak, the louder the sound gets.
So I should speak lower?
But I don't know.
What should I do?
See,
Okay, you know what? It is what it is, and that's it. We'll worry about it later. I have no patience with technology. Technology has to catch up to us, not we have to catch up to it. Anyway, so he's asking a question. We just said Chayis is Gilui. He's asking a question. Shame is Gil. It brings the Gilui Chayis. Shem Harikayach Nehelam. And the name is a hidden force faculty. So how is the Chayis revealed? Yeshleimer Commission is Barleel Perik Shinvov. So we can say it's what we explained earlier, chapter 306. That's the chapter we just looked at. What did he say there? The Lamai Lagama Ed B'chin Shem Lagabe Atzmus. Because above, even the Eid is like a shame.
He said that before? Or just the first time we heard it?
Stop there and start it again.
You can't do that. It's actually you can't do that. You're gonna stop it now.
In class. Streaming live?
You want to
It's open on the wrong side. It's open on.
Just recorded.
What?
I'll just make it down.
Lower.
Let's continue.
Good run while it lasted. Good run while it lasted.
Just unmute all.
You think that would be good?
Yes.
Okay. Fine. Solved. So
Did you say this before?
he did say it changed Shin Vav. That Lamaila also is like Shem Lagabe Atzmus. Why? Shazel Mitzad Havdalas Atzmus Shenivdal Be'erech. That Lamaila, as opposed to, let's say, a sun. A sun is the Iker Pai. That a sun is Lahoyer al Aretz. That's what it says in Chumash. That a sun was created to illuminate earth. But Atzmus, compared to Atzmus, is like Shem. A second. Because Havdalas Shenivdal Be'erech. It's completely separate from anything. That's why Lamaila, compared to Atzmus, the general is only like a name. How does that answer the question? The question is that a name is a concealing force. And now we said Chayis is Megal.
Yeah, but the source of Chayis is the bad some of the hell.
Okay, but he's continuing. He says nevertheless, as this was also discussed earlier, in detail, he talked more specifically, there are two levels. That Ayir is a level of Gili, revelation. The same things by a human being down below. The Nasa, the Mitzalmanik is saying, God created a human being, B'Tselem in his image and his shape, form. Even though the general life energy force is like a shem, meaning it's separate.
Right.
Nevertheless, when you break it down in detail, more specifically, there are two levels. One is shem that's like separate, and one is air that's like revealing. Let's finish what he's going to say. Ayin Hashem u'shayach yesnis kashus hanefesh b'guf. So the name is connected more to the connection between the soul and the body. Like we explained in the previous chapters, 307. The nishmas Moshe b'gufish Moshe nikra Moshe b'gufish l'ashbi nikra Rab Shimon. That the soul of Moshe and the body of Moshe is called Moshe. And the body of Rab Shimon Bar Yochai is called Rab Shimon.
Same soul.
Same souls, because you see from this that the name is more related to how the soul connects to the body. And we could say, we could say this is how the essence of the soul is mugdir, is
Analyze.
bound by the body. I'll explain that in a moment. Like you explained earlier, chapter 56, and like we'll explain shortly, close by. So even though the name is a revelation, nevertheless it reflects and tells us that the etzem is mugdir.
It's a concealment.
Not concealed.
is bound. That's because it's a separate.
It has a limiting bound. Like the membrane of a cell. It's moved.
What means defined?
Together.
Now what it means is, it says in Chassidus that nefesh, ruach, and neshama chai yechida. So nefesh, ruach, and neshama are completely manifest in the body. Chai yechida are not manifest, but they're mugda in the body. Meaning that a soul without a body doesn't have all these levels. But once it's in a body, even yechida is somewhat confined in this body. It's only called confined, it's not called revealed. So what he's saying here is, the fact that you call Moshe and Rashbi in a different body, Rav Shimon, is telling you that not just the lower levels, the whole neshama, even the chaya, is also bound to the body. See, that's what he's saying. So even though the name is a certain gili, nevertheless, it's telling you that the etzim is moved, and it's all because it's a separate thing. Meaning that the name is not reflective of the way the neshama is all on its own. Bottom line. A little complicated, this parenthesis. This whole chapter needs a lot of reading here. To be very honest.
It's only that relationship that
Let's finish reading and then I'll go back and understand it. I don't want to speculate here. Being that the name is a revelation from the soul and it reveals the etzem. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, my mistake. Bottom line is the following. He asked a question that isn't a name a concealing force, and a name is what connects the chayes. So the Rashab is answering, that's true, and there's two things going on here at once. Compared to the essence of Atzmus, and the same thing, the essence of the soul, everything is like a level of shame, because it's apart from it all. But within itself, this gufa, there's a one part that's more revealing, and one part that's more concealing. That's his answer here. So initially, we were just going to say there's two things, chayes and shame. He's adding that even chayes, that reveals, compared to the real essence, is like shame. But the interesting thing before he said, if you remember, that chayes reveals even that is beyond chayes. So in other words, chayes is revealing that it's concealed, if you want to think about it that way. Chayes is telling you that the essence is really concealed from us and a mystery. That's the twist here. So there's a part that chayes reveals about the personality of the source, and there's a part that chayes reveals about the mystery of the source. That's what he's really saying here. That's the breakdown of error and shame. So if you want to talk about the shame level, is the more the concealer. The error is the more the revealer. And they're both in chayes because, as he said, based on what he said in Shin Vov, that the etzem, everything, error and shame, compared to the etzem, everything is like a shem. But yet there's two levels here. The parentheses, however, I still do not understand completely. But let's continue on. So bottom line is, the way it is above, so let me just like this. Atzmus is beyond Moyer. You can't even call him a source of life. That's not his primary function. But he chose to manifest. And when he manifests, Oyer is Megala something about him. What is Megala? Two things. It's Megala that the Eibishter has Oyer and is giving us something. So we have a certain similar. We could say we understand him a bit, but it's also Megala, the Shem. It's Megala that he's completely apart from us. So that's the Shem part that is the concealer, and that Shem is what he says. That Shem is what gives chayes. He says, "Shugila chashu adei Hashem." Yeah. It's both revealing and concealing. That's the bottom line. Same thing is lamata by a human being. When you see a person's alive, you know there's a nefesh. What do we know about this nefesh? We know one thing, it gives energy. Because if it didn't give energy, we wouldn't be alive. We know that it's etzem and it's built in mispashit, so its energy is not the way the energy it gives. But then we know something that we don't know. It also reveals to us that it's something that it's not in our capacity to understand. That's what he's saying here very clearly. The parentheses, however, is what makes it that etzem is mukdar. Ah, that's what he means. Etzem is mukdar. In other words, the name is telling you, Rashbi tells you this person is Rab Shimon. And also it's telling you about the etzem hanefesh. Because etzem hanefesh is mukdar, but you don't know anything about this etzem. That's what he's saying. Okay. Aval chayis ubchinas gili ma'nefesh. Umagalas etzem. So there's the two things. So name does not reveal. That's why you could have one person, two people with the same neshama, and one person is named one way, and the person another named another way, right? Ayin Shem discussions on shofar b'guf. Aval chayis. That's the name is primarily connecting. Remember, we said Malchus connects the source to strangers, to something outside of it. So a name connects a soul to a body. But Chayis, we're talking about specifically, not in general. In general, they're both distant. Chayis, life energy, life force, that life force is a revelation from the soul and reveals the etzem. Just like Eir above reveals the source of Eir, the source of energy, the energy, same thing, life energy reveals the essence of the soul.
Would this be like Rav Shimon different than Rav Moshe? Their liveliness is different.
It's a good question. I think yes. I think Rav Shimon, the difference between them, the shem tells you, okay, if you talk only from the level of Eir, of Chayis, you could say that they both come from the same neshama. But once you're talking how they're mislabish in the guf, once they become bodies, something happens here that even their essence in some way is different. That's what you have to say something like that. He's not spelling it out clearly. My guess is that the fact that one neshama can come into two bodies tells you the mystery of the soul. That it has dimensions in it that are different. That's for sure. That's what it seems to me, but I'm not sure. I have to think about it. Let's I don't know that. And even though there's a difference of how they reveal the essence, he's talking about chayis and eir. That even though the energy of the soul reveals the essence of the soul differently than eir above reveals the etzem, but both, in general speaking, nevertheless, both of them are a revelation that reveals the existence of an essence.
There is an essence.
Yeah.
Nothing about
it. Let's put it this way. You look at the world, and you see I'm just giving an example, and you see the order of the world. It's no different than looking at a book and telling you there's an author. The world dictates that there is an author to this book. So right away it tells you, and you know that an author is always more than the book. And now you go even further, you know that the author, not the ikr of the author is to write this book.
And you know further that an author is more than an author.
Right, exactly. That's exactly what he's saying.
It's not as ikr to write the book.
Right. That's not the primary thing of the author is to write a book. And the primary thing of the etzem to be an author. It's one. So there's something that it reveals and something that it conceals. Something that it reveals, it tells us. The Oyer tells us there's an author. It tells us the author is not like the book. It tells us that he is not primarily an author. But that itself is a shem, because the shem is telling you that he's not us. That's something that's nivdal. It's not the sunlight, for example, doesn't tell you that the sun is not a sun. That's basically what he's saying here. But there's a distinction of how this, so the soul does, that's what it tells us. It tells us that it's not that. And that's the shame part, is what it's saying, is focusing on. You don't know from a name what it is.
When it's nivdal.
But that goof is a revelation. So that's the twist there. Understand? It's not just concealment. It's revealing to you that you know nothing about it. Okay, very interesting. And the same thing is with the faculties of the soul. like the faculties of intelligence and emotions and feelings. That even though they're not the essence of the soul, nevertheless they're faculties of the soul. Good, they're not the essence of the soul, but to say that they're not coming from there, they're absolutely a revelation from there. We say the energy of intelligence, the energy of midas, of emotions. He's explaining this now on a lower level. Just like energy of life energy, reveals to us that there's a soul that's beyond the life energy. And a soul beyond that, Keichus and Nefesh tell us that they reveal that this Nefesh, this soul, has these faculties. At the same time, they're not the essence of the soul. But now he's distinguishing. The first thing he was discussing. Faculties are not the same type of revelation, mamish, literally, like the energy and life force. This is a gili pasha, a shapeless. You can't really define. When you say life energy, what does it look like? You can't define it like faculties. He's going to say define. I could see, I could hear, I could think, I could feel. And also, they come b'derech mamela. Life, when the soul enters, it just automatically gives you life. Faculties have to be, you have to open your eyes. You have to use your mind. So he's going to say that. Maybe. It's not b'derech mamela. Okay. So one thing, keiches are different. He's distinguishing, but he's giving an example, but he's distinguishing. Whereas faculties, they come in a shape and form. And the revelation is not b'derech hamela. It's not just poof, life is coming in. You need to have containers. You have to have dafka containers. Or by the yigiyah dafka, it comes through effort, exertion. Yigiyah is a faculty you have to work on.
When the chayes comes into the body, straight away, if it has the keli to see, it could see. Or would it have to work?
Let's talk about meichel, not seeing, you're right, seeing you could say, but seeing also, to see properly, to look and focus. We're talking about, in other words, there's some, he's just explaining that it's not as direct, seamless, let's put it this way. It's electricity, the electricity flow into the body is chayes. The electricity flow into faculties needs more. Think of it like this: you may have electricity running in a machine, but one of the two functions is not working. So you see, there's power, but a function is not working because the container is not broken. Like that particular element is broken. I mean, this is an excellent model for any engineering.
So it needs a carrier. It needs some type of path to go on. If there's no path, it has to be something. Then the path has to be resistance also.
Right. So you can see power going
resistance. Power needs resistance also.
And this is because the energy and the life force that comes from the soul is a revelation from the essence. And reveals the essence. So it's a revelation from the essence and it reveals the essence. Whereas faculties, they come in as faculties, that means that they're outside of the essence of the soul. Nevertheless, they do share this element that they're a revelation. And the soul is revealed in them and through them. And that is that we see through the faculties, we can see the revelation of the soul and its functions. Shemaskil haskolas conceives of ideas, b'keich haseichel with the power of intelligence, or mashpia chesed b'keich chesed, and transmits and imparts love or chesed, kindness, with the power of kindness. So in other words, keiches, though they are stepped down from the life force, because they're specific and so on, and they're outside of the etzem and nefesh, but they reveal to us the function. They reveal to us what the soul has and its functionality. And that's why keiches, faculties, are called tikkunim. In Tikkun Zeir, we say Pasach Elyo Friday. that they're called the Chad Inus Tikunin Lahon. Why? Because nefesh mistakenes behem. The nefesh mistakenes literally means repairs, but mistakenes also means like ornaments. It's adorned by that. The soul, in other words, is expressed through that. Because the soul works through them and is revealed through them. Like he says in Tere'ed, the Maimer Pasach Eliyah Vayera. And now another thing, and also through the faculties we're able to know the soul as it is in its root and its source. Like Shammai and Hill, they come from Chesed and Gvura. Shammai is Gvura, Hill is Chesed. That's why Shammai always, his mind leaned toward Chesed, leniency. And Gvura, I'm sorry, Shammai leans, Seichel leaned toward severity, stringent. The Hillel Chesed, and Hillel leaned towards Chesed, kind, lenience. Even though they're only faculties of the soul, and not revealing the essence of his soul, like the life force. Nevertheless, they are commensurate with, and according to, and reveal the essence. And they have a closeness to the essence. Because the soul has pleasure in its faculties. Like a wise person when he conceives of any idea. His soul has pleasure from it. Like it says in the Gemara that his face glowed, illuminated. That means there was a pleasure involved. So what did he just say here? He says that even though it's faculties, it still reveals. We see Shammai and Hillel, from the way they process Seichel, it reveals that this one in the Neshama comes from Chesed, this one comes from Gvura. So now we're talking Chayes, now he's talking about Keiches. Okay. The same thing, that's Maskel, Chochem. That's when he conceives of an idea. The same thing when he comprehends an idea, it also has in it great pleasure. Same thing with Chesed. A person who's good and kind has great pleasure from transmitting and imparting kindness. Like Avram Avinu, we see Abraham had great pleasure when he bestowed kindness on others. All this does not exist with a name. So he's so far been discussing that chayes of the nefesh is like oir. It reveals. It reveals also that there's a part of the essence that is beyond, but it does reveal something. And then he moved on to say faculties are similar on a lower level. Faculties reveal, even though they're not the essence, but they reveal part of the essence. A name, on the other hand, all this that we spoke, a name does not have because it's separate from the essence. Nevertheless, we cannot say that a name has no relationship with the essence. We see when someone is called by name, he turns to his call, to the one who's calling him. He responds. The essence of the person, not just his superficial levels. The essence of the person responds to when you call him by name, he turns toward you. The same thing as in the spirituality of the soul, the spirit. That the energy that extends, manifests through a name, and manifests and manifests in the body canal like we discussed earlier. The name connects the soul to the body. That's why there's different names even for same souls, like Shimon and Moshe. The essence of the soul is confined by it, like you said before in the parentheses.
Or what?
Now he's going back to
Established in
that.
the book?
Now he's going back to the parentheses. 1 second. Yeah, he's trying to explain here that now a name doesn't have all these revelations. On the other hand, a name does draw the essence. That's what he's saying. Why? Because as he said in the parentheses, because the name, because the Etzem HaNefesh is mugdir. Once a soul enters a body, all of the soul enters. It's different. Keches Primi is different. Chai Yechid only are mugdir, but they're there. In other words, you can't find them elsewhere now. They're somewhere mugdir. So when you call Shimon, Reb Shimon, he's going to turn to you. Though his neshama is the same neshama as Moshe, but Shimon brings the whole essence of the soul now. So though a shem is separate, that different same soul could have different names, but nevertheless the shem also does bring something, does reveal something, does not reveal, draws something. Like he says, it has a relationship with the essence.
It sounds like the etzem is much more than what's being established in the guf. In other words, the person is not the whole etzem.
Correct. And a shem, he's going to say this, a shem expresses that part. You see, look, it's a constant back and forth here.
Yeah.
Let me finish it. Remember, we said that it reveals both things. The shem is going to tell us, is going to draw the etzem that's not revealed. Eir tells us about the part that we do understand. But the interesting thing is that Eir also reveals like the distance. So Eir is shem, like that's what's going on here. But in detail, Hashem primarily focuses on the things we don't relate to, though it draws that person here. Let's say, he's elaborating what he said before in the parentheses. Remember I said I wasn't clear? He's now going back to it. When a soul enters a body, it cannot enter another body. If you say Chai Yechida are not really manifest in the body, you could say, you know what? Nefesh Ruach Neshama is by you. Chai Yechida could be elsewhere. He's going to speak about this. He's going to speak about Hamnuna Saba. Yeah, right here. That's the proof. The proof is going to be Eliyahu Novi comes to all the bris. He's not going into a body. But there's situations, once you go in a body, you cannot come. Because you could argue, why can't someone in a body be in two places at once? He's going to say this now. Like we find by Eliyahu that Rashbi asked him, why was he not in the Idra, in the group? Rashbi had his group. His answer was that he had to save Rabbi Munasana from his friends. There was some Gzeda. I'm not sure what it was. Isa b'kisvei Arizal. It says in Kisvei Arizal, the writings of the Arizal, that because of the honor, respect of Rabbi Nuna Saba,
Why couldn't he be more?
right. He had to be dafka specifically in a body. The same thing, to honor Rashbi, he also had to be in the body. The and a soul cannot be into two bodies. But he continues now. And Eliyahu is found by bris in 1 second in several places. That's only a spark of his soul. When he comes into a body, where the soul manifests in it, he cannot be in two bodies at once. So we see from this that the entire neshama, is mugdar b'guf. That's what's really explaining that parenthesis. Let me just go back a second. Let me just read it. Okay.
But just it is going to be that way. It's going to be one neshama and many gufim because of the gilgulim. It's the same neshama that comes down in different bodies.
It says in Zayah that the neshama is broken in parts.
Yeah.
And will go to each body according to the name that it had. Could be different names.
But it's the same neshama.
Its root is the same neshama, but its neshama breaks into it. It says this befedish. He asked this question. So
Yeah.
which body is going to stand up?
So the could the
So,
neshama
so
could
first there's answer.
the neshama could go into two bodies. We see it by
But it's not one neshama then. Then it's actually it's like a neshama klolis and neshama protz. It's not the same thing. It's talking about neshama protz mamish. That's what he's talking about. Neshama protz mamish, like Eliyahu, as he is Eliyahu. Look, it's complicated, but basically what he says there in Zohar, I guess the question he's asked, which body? Well, let's say a soul was in 5 bodies through this shitafesh, through this. Which body will arise? So the answer there says the body that was mizach, that it was mizach. But then the Zohar continues. The reason the soul comes down a second time is to finish something it didn't do the first time. So which one will it come? So the Zohar says that it says clearly, nefesh, ruach, neshama. It says the neshama will come in each body, will get its section that it did. It will be like 2 different individuals. In other words, both individuals. 5 people can come. That originally was one soul. Let's put it this way: if that one soul had done the job and never had a gilgul, it would have not have to necessarily do that. But once it did, it's almost like shneim sheichs metalis. It comes down. The soul could be break into parts, but once it breaks apart, it cannot come in another place. The best proof would be that it has to come in a second gilgul. Why can't it just right then just split off and go to another person? It's not so posh. The point I'm trying to say is that Moshe and Rashbi will both stand up at Chis HaMesim. Okay? Not just Moshe. Ayin and Rashbi is the neshama of Moshe. Because they clearly are different parts of the neshama, of that same neshama.
Wait, the Rashbi is Pashtush of the Moshe or is
Not as Pashtus. That's Pashtus is another story. He's talking about, because he's saying clearly he has a different name.
It's a little bit
It's a different
that
Aved.
neshama that was down in this body. The Yom Hadin, they tell him to go back to him exactly what he didn't do. So it's the same neshama. It's not another part of the neshama. It's a little.
No, because remember, it's the soul.
And Rashbi comes down. So Moshe's neshama is still upstairs. He doesn't say Moshe's neshama is absent from upstairs until Rashbi's life is over. It doesn't make sense. I mean, he wouldn't say that. Moshe's busy on a mission right now. We'll be back in 80 years.
It says in Chassidus that Moshe Rabbeinu is already learning Gan Eden 3,000 years.
Right. So that means Moshe still stays there. That means that there's these. So it means this has to be a split.
No, you have to say. Now the question is a good question, because the answer is like this: if Eliyahu can't come 2 places because of the Shem B'Guf, so how can Moshe and Rashbi come together at Chis HaMesim? The same neshama in 2 bodies. The answer is that clearly it's parts of the neshama. Each of them have a different part. It's not the same soul exactly.
The problem starts when Rashbi was born. That's when the question becomes. That's not the case. Even before when he's born. They meet Moshe's normal Lamila. If Moshe's neshama goes to the Rashbi, you say a neshama can only be one. If it goes to the physical body.
You have to say it's a part, right? You have to say it's a part of it. Exactly. You can't say it's exactly the same. Yeah, it's correct. But there it's not such a problem for Chis HaMesim. Chis HaMesim, you could say the Neshama Moshe came now down the tzir of Rashbi, and it's exactly the same neshama. But you don't have 2 people walking.
I know,
but
does that mean that Moshe is no longer a Lamaila?
No, because Saruch is a different thing.
Right, so it's a different thing. What means Lamaila? It means it's Lamaila and Lamata. That's and when even when Moshe was down Lamata, it was only Lamata. It was also Lamaila. No, right. That's not. The problem is, like you said, Eliyahu Novi, B'tzat the COVID, Rabbi Nun Sab and Rashbi could not be in 2 places. So technically speaking, if Rashbi was alive, could Moshe Rabbeinu suddenly emerge? Not based on this, but Chis HaMesim they will. So you have to say it's not talking about this case. There's a different. Basically, the shemas will split. It's not. In this case, you need. Let's put it this way: if you needed Eliyahu Novi to be at both these people, and he split, and one was called Eliyahu Novi, another was his Gilgul, and another thing, that's possible. But that Eliyahu Novi, that part of the neshama, that body, that cannot be in 2 places. So in other words, also you can have the split. The Moshe part is in Moshe, the Rashbi part is in Rashbi, but you can't have the Rashbi part in both. That's the bottom line.
It's not going to be 600,000 people in Mashiach. It's going to be billions.
Yeah. And remember, as Shita Fish, look, you have to remember neshamas are a neshama. Moshe, if Adam and Chava had not eaten from the tree, you could say Mashiach would have come. You never would have had millions of people. So what's with us? Because we're all dichel in the neshama of Adam. But Tchisa Mesim is definitely not going to be just two people. So clearly, right there, you know that a neshama has the power to give. It could be break into many parts, and each part is like a full life. The challenge is that we spoke is, let's say, a zivug sheni. What do you do then? So but there comes a different problem. You see, most people have the issue because I want to have my husband or my wife. I remember them and saw them. But you could say, love, it's not forget about what you saw. It's not about physical seeing. It's the neshama that you have. Your connections with the neshama. And maybe will two bodies look alike and have this, that's a strange one. It's hard to imagine. So let's say a person has two zivugim, and the first wife died. So who's going to be, or the other way around, the first husband died. So you make it more complicated.
The husband's not a problem, because he could have many wives.
Can you say
Yeah, I understand, but
the other way around.
okay, fine.
Once she remarries, yeah.
So what happens then? So what happens then?
Once she remarries, she can't go back to her husband.
Okay, so what happens now? So you have two husbands here.
I'm glad you solved half of the problem.
So you have two husbands. The problem is, do they look alike? That's another issue. With Tchisa Mesim, you look alike. That's another issue. Okay. Let's go back here, and the Rambam says the things we don't know, we just don't talk about. That's it. No, it's interesting. You have to say that they both will definitely have a connection to the soul of the person. And this wife, there's this part of the soul, this one. This is two separate. It's two separate people. Obviously, there's not going to be anything from kina and pettiness. So also the chamitis. So that's not an issue.
Can't we say that the
You have to say maybe that Tzir Hagufim will look similar. So what? Maybe she'll get the husband how he looked like before he died. And she'll get the husband how he looked after.
So the mere fact
She'll have like a guy, you get the one when he's 20 years old, you get him when he's 40 years old. I want to shoot to that. Yeah, anyway, but let's go back to what he's saying here. What he's saying here is that a name that a name still has a connection to the etzem and draws down the etzem. So we're saying that's why it's mugdar in the guf.
How could a name draw down etzem and then the neshama have two different names?
And so neshama doesn't have names. Only neshama b'guf has names.
The person has two different names, and the Torah.
Let's say Reb Shimon and Moshe.
Yeah.
Because it's different discussions to the guf. Their bodies are different, so therefore there's a different name.
The neshama has a different connection to the guf. Oh.
Yeah, that's the problem. He said that clearly. That the shem is be'ikas is kashus and the neshama b'guf. Pure souls in heaven, and it's hard to understand. Because where's Neshama Sajbi right now? Where's Nishmas Moshe Rabbeinu? You have to say, because after they did their Aveda B'guf Lamata, that once they would return, it's different. They do have to, there's two different elements. They have a commonality. Before they came down, once they came through a Guf and did Aveda, Rashbi right now is in Gan Eden somewhere, and Moshe is in Gan Eden, even though they have no bodies. But that's because they once did have bodies. So the body affected that distinction. That's what he's saying. That's for sure what's going on.
They didn't join again?
To say that basically Rashbi doesn't exist because it's back to me. No, I know. You have to say because Rashbi definitely did something in his Aveda that Moshe didn't do.
That remains.
Yeah, you have to say. Schar, other things. It's just, that's why Tchisa Mesim, there will be two. It's not just it'll pop up then, it's all a result of, no, for sure. The Vedas and Neshama B'guf has an impact on Neshama forever afterwards. There's no question about it. The whole thing, the whole Yiddishkeit will fall apart if not that. The whole point is that it's a continuing journey.
But we can't say scholars that each one does.
Yeah. I'm sure that they're sitting and learning near each other and probably understand each other pretty well. In other words, in the world of neshamas, remember, they're not cousins. In the world of neshamas, they probably have a very similar function. And there's the commonality. When we say there's a commonality, you're talking about neshama commonality. Anyway, let's continue here. Okay, so Kamash Alyon Imsa Bismillah is because it was only a nitzvus minishmas. But kashabah beguf shaneshama labesh bezeh ef shaliz bebeis guf. But when it comes in a body, it can't be in two bodies. So that's it. Harish shaneshama mugder is beguf. V'Hashem hu gam kein laha nefesh. The shem is also a name for the nefesh. But kamoshe mislabish beguf dafka, lo kamoshe ulamayla. In other words, a name is not just for the body. It's not just this body is called this. The name is for the nefesh. But the way the nefesh manifests in the body. And this is what the essence is confined in this level. In other words, so wherefore when you call somebody by name, it doesn't reveal who he is, like Oyer Chayes, Keches, but it definitely draws him, and he's bound by it. So when you call someone, basically, well, he's probably going to speak soon how it is in the Kus, but essentially the bottom line is that there's two ways that we connect to the source. One, reveals, faculties reveal, they reveal the source, they reveal the sources beyond the source, they reveal the source is not only a source, etc. So let's say the author. A book tells you that the author is an author. It tells you the author is not limited to being an author of this book. He's also not limited to being an author of B'chlal. He's much more than, his primary role is not being an author. So that reveals. Shem, when you call this author by name, so the name doesn't tell you what kind of author it is, doesn't tell you anything. But he's bound to it. His name is connected. The name is drawing him to you. So before he said when you call a name, a person, the whole person responds to you. Now he's saying when you call a person by the name, we see that it calls upon, it generates, and draws the energy of the nefesh from its root and its source. Like when a person is faint. The Salfus is fainted, right? It's not exhausted. Sometimes you say it. Ayefus is exhausted.
Total exhaustion.
Yeah. So it comes from the same root as Ayef. Aleph is from Ayef, like Ayefus. You can draw, you can return his nefesh, you can revive him, basically, by calling him by his name. Is this ever been proven?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, but it must be a very, very, not a deep type of Salfus. It must be a very light Salfus.
You don't do that? You call the name? You call the person?
No, instead, and we do say that, and you call a person, and
like a
Trying to
770.
bring him back. Trying to bring him back. So you call it.
Like a
no,
770.
but does it ever work? Does it ever work?
Yeah, and it's like a shtukta missile to feel, and he say he fainted, so then when you call his name, he'll like revive. But if someone back fainted because of high blood sugar,
This needs to be looked into. You know what? Why don't we leave it as a question? Maybe there is something.
No, it is true, but it's a very light.
Faint. Don't you? They call his name. You know?
And does it work?
It brings him back.
I know some people who even when they're awake, you call them by the name. It doesn't do anything. I do know, for example, when a person, let's say, is disconnected. You know, you want to get someone. You call his name. You reach into a deeper place and say, wake up, Avram. Or,
It's interesting you asked about the
like there is a name. Like if I want to get your attention, you're really being obstinate or something. Call your name. It has a certain,
It penetrates deep.
it's like what Yossi, what's the Zaymid? Like that.
No, the Salfus is an own thing. Yes, but you asked about the Salfus and the same thing as Ayefus. Remember that Rebbe spoke to sich about Shmuel Witten when he passed away?
Yeah.
Oyev krijgt, Yoev krijgt.
Yeah, then it's a yeah, that's good. Okay, let's continue here. V'yadua, the hashavas hanefesh zeh b'derech yischatshus abom hanefesh, and it's known that the return of this revival of the nefesh, of the spirit, that's in the form of yischatshus. It's like a renewal. Habom hanefesh that comes from the nefesh. K'moshul amaylam b'chinas mokim lispashtus and gili chayes nefesh. See, here's mashma. It's a lot more than just mashma that you're actually. That'd be interesting. I'm going to ask some doctors if there's any basis for such a thing. You have to know exactly what. Okay, bottom line is, but a component of tzchachos that comes from the nefesh, that's from the ma'il, that comes from the root, the source of where the ispashtus v'gili chayes nefesh. So no. Yeah, it goes to the source that's high. Okay. And it draws from the Mokkah, the source of where the energy and the life force are drawn. Like it says elsewhere in the difference between the energy that is generated through eating and through a strong smell, a strong scent. That's interesting. Look at what we discussed earlier, chapter 2:16 and on, the difference between karbonis and potatoes, the offerings and the incense.
Well, why are you saying the difference? It's not mentioned anywhere.
Let's see. I think he wants to say that. Aveda, this is Aveda Apitam V'das. Yes, there's a difference, yeah. So Karbonis is Aveda Apitam V'das. It's a P, meaning a rational sense. So B'chinas Rusa Deliba is the inner desire of the soul. The Aveda Shapitam V'das U'B'keches Hagluyim. The work, the effort, the Aveda person does the service that is based on rational mind, is in the revealed faculties. The seichel midas of the mind and the emotions, and comprehending and meditating and awakening of love and awe. So just like his work, his effort is in Giluyim and revelation, that's why he also reaches the revelations of the structure of the cosmic structure and the root and source of the structure, cosmic order. For Usa Deliba, on the other hand, the inner desire reaches the essence of the divine light. Like it says in Zeir, machshava, your thought cannot grasp it. Less machshava tfisa bey. Less machshava tfisa bey.
Through machshava, you can't grab it.
You can't grasp it. Aval nitfis, but he's grasped through Rusa Deliba, through that desire of the heart. The atzmus ein itself, the less machshava tfisa bey klal nitfis iyu b'Rusa Deliba. That essence of the divine light that does not manifest in any way, cannot be grasped rather through machshava, through thought, is grasped. What's this line add? The line before. Okay, it does say some places EU less machshava than EU. Okay. Ubafrad b'teshuvah.
Through meditation, you can't grasp it.
Ubafrad b'teshuvah, and specifically through teshuvah, shemagir b'chinas atzmus ein sof, through teshuvah, the return that reaches the essence of the divine light, and misham slichas havenis. And from them we have the forgiveness of sins. Because through a sin, chet oven, difference in chet and oven is different places.
Can I suggest what the line was adding?
Yeah.
That the first one is in release machshava that you can't be grasped by machshava at all, but you could be through Rusa Deliba. And the second line is saying that through Rusa Deliba, machshava could grasp. In other words, once you have Rusa Deliba, then it could be.
No, but we don't spell out the parentheses, the Rosh Hashanah.
The
less machshava tfis beklal,
right.
nitvis you, but so that the atzmus, which machshava can be grasped, is grasped through Rusa Deliba. It's almost the same thing. The only difference he says nitvis you. I don't know. I mean,
well, I think ihu, spelling out the ihu is the atzmus. As we said before, you wouldn't know that the ihu means atzmus. And so you might think that's
probably. Al Kaponim sins. What they do is they cause the energy to expire, to leave. It's like an aver that gets wounded, so it causes the energy to leave that part of the person.
Or you make a hole, the blood comes out.
Yeah. In order to draw down the energy, that's going to be a name. Okay. You need for that you need something powerful to reach the root of the transmission from even a higher level. And from the level of the essence of the divine dafke. With you. You essentially control or are the master of forgiveness. Imcha, with you there's forgiveness, meaning it's your domain. Because only from that higher source can be forgiveness for something. In other words, if you hurt somebody or you betray somebody, to repair, you need to go deeper than what you had before. And this is through the awakening of the soul, the essence, the primis, the inner and essence of the soul. And that's my makim karasicha, that from my depths I call out to you. My makim twice. From depth to depth, meaning it's not just going deep, you have to go to the depth into the depth. And for example, a river that was aborted, a river that was stopped flowing, dried up. So how do you revive it? You have to dig deeper. You have to dig deeper into the earth to reach the Mayan, the springs, in order to revive that water. Because clearly that part dried up, so you need to go deeper. Amen. And this is the end of teshuvah. And that's teshuvah. What is teshuvah? Teshuvah means you go deeper inside yourself. You return deeper into your emek, your primis hanefesh, and that reaches deeper in atzmos. So it's like he said before, giluyim. Giluyim reach giluyim. Etzem reaches etzem. You want to reach someone deeper, you got to go deeper. There's no two ways around that. If you're going to give somebody something that's external, you'll get back external. Kamayim upon it, upon it. There we go. And that same thing, a name, agiya ba'atzmos. A name reaches into the essence.
It's not a platonic relationship, it's more of an intimate relationship.
So I think what he did say, reach and achila. Achila is tadas. That's what he said for sure earlier in my morning. Reach is not previous. You don't taste it, you don't digest it. But it can reach, when a person faints, you give him smelling salts. Yeah. So it's saying shem. Yeah, shem is similar to reach, and chayis is similar to achila. Right. Now, so it continues. This is why he's called Shem HaMelech. We say HaMelech, HaMishpat, HaMelech. Shem HaMelech, the reason the name God, the name King that you call Rosh Hashanah, leaves the Rosh Hashanah Aliyas HaMalchus She'ela B'Shashim V'Keira Atzmi B'Knis Atzmi Sein Sof. Because Rosh Hashanah, Malchus, elevates to its root and source, its essential root and source, and essence of the divine. When we say Kim HaMelech, and we cry out, the King, to draw down this level of melucha from essence, from the essence. Val heder aveda ksiv ein keda b'shmecha. And when you're lacking aveda, when there's a lack of service, you say ein keda b'shmecha. What does that mean? That there's no one calling, and no one calling his name. So the idea is calling the name draws malchus. And when you're not doing your aveda, you're not calling. Right. He speaks malchus. Imru lefone malchus. That says b'meba shefer. So it goes right. That we say before him malchus. Say
in front of me.
Saying lefonai.
Imru
lefonai. Say for me. Through saying, through calling out, mamshichim. What's the full lashon there? Is the chrein malchus?
Imru for a malchus tam lechunya
lechem. Is the chrein right? That's shefus. Okay. Through calling out, you are drawn down this melucha. Same thing as when we call out the detailed names, specific names of all the faculties, we draw down those particular faculties from their source and their root and source, their essential root and source. Like by calling the name Chacham, you're actually drawing down Chachma from the root. Essence root. It means even when he doesn't at that point have, that moment have, a revelation of Chachma in his mind, its faculty. Nevertheless, is a renewal of this chachma and seichel, this intelligence, from where? From the keich hayuli, that potential state.
Affirmation.
The keich hayuli ha'atzmi, from the essential potential state. They create shem chacham by calling him with the name chacham. You see this by Rashbi. They say the shvachim. Look at the additions to Sefer Tereir Ba'abir V'ani Nasati. I think it's in Kisisa. And in this there's a virtue, a quality, a superior quality in shame, name, compared to energy. Sha'ir ein mamshech etzem. It does not draw down the essence. Vashem mamshech etzem, and the name draws the essence. V'zeh mitzad etzem Hashem hainu esis Hashem. And this comes from the essential name, which means the letters of the name. Like we learned, discussed earlier, chapter 3:06. The Gam Etzem Hashem B'chinas Chayes. But even the essence of the name is also a level of Chayes, of energy. And even though the name is separate from the soul, as we spoke, canal, as discussed earlier, nevertheless it's rooted in the essence of the soul. And because of that, it draws down the essence. Okay. The first half is a lot more complicated, but I think I got it. The summary of the bottom line is there's two ways to connect. One reveals even the distance and the concealing, and shem be'ikr draws the etzem. Because remember, he said before that the negative side of shem, which is nivdal, that it's separate, is also there in eir compared to atzmus. Because atzmus is not bound by the fact that he's a moyer. And yet the name, okay, so eir reveals that. 1 second. And shem
is like an ACS, made out of ACS.
So you say Yud Kei Vav Kei, you're not just reaching, you're actually bringing the etzem, even though it doesn't reveal what the etzem is like. But the etzem is bound by it in some way.
Isn't it like the Kalim that they're made to, but they also reach deeper into the...
Yeah, but it's not saying Kalim here, there's Shemus. Shemus is between Eidus and Kalim.
Have a look at that.
Okay. The picture is, it's basically, the interesting twist is that Shem and Eir, if he says, that's why the piece where he says that Shem is Helam and it's Megal the Chayes into the Guf. So how could Helam or the Shem find something that's revealing? So the answer is, because the truth is, even the revealing is also not. So everything is really together with Shem. It's an interesting twist. The bottom line is that Eir and Shem reveal two different things, and then there's an overlap. Because Shem has in it, Eir also reveals that God is beyond, meaning Eir reveals the element of Hashem as well. He said that also earlier. He said that in Shem Vav, he said that. You have to say this. So basically, they both overlap, but they both reflect two different dimensions. Let's read the Kitzur.
So they have similarities, but essentially different.
And just like you said about Eir, compared to Shem. Same thing is with the Chayes and Nefesh, the energy of the soul, Shohugili, that's a revealing form, state. V'yedim, Shanefesh Chai Be'etzem, and you know from it that the soul is fundamental, essential energy. Loi bispashus, v'loi b'amshacha. Not by extension and not by transmission. Maybe that's the difference between the first one says, Echad she'en b'chinas pashus, abei she'en klal b'chinas amshacha. And then he said that Atzmos is Ein B'chinas Amshacha Klal. Those are the two things. It teaches us two things. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Then he continues. And same with faculties. Even though they're outside the essence of the soul, nevertheless they reveal. Yedim hem hanefesh b'shoshim. You know from them the soul and its source, and its root. Yeshlem kirav el etzem, and they have a closeness to this essence. Shemisanig ba'akeches, mashenkim b'shem. He has pleasure from his faculties. In contrast to a name, which doesn't reveal anything. And nevertheless, Hashem, nevertheless, the name is rooted in the essence of the soul. And the energy within the body is through the name, and the etzem of the soul, the essence of the soul, is confined by it, confined with the bizet within it. But the kriyas Hashem nifna kol atzmusay, he calls someone by name, he nifna, all his whole essence turns toward you, responds. And by calling by the name, you actually draw down chadash, new, revived, regenerated energy, like God forbid someone who fainted. And Aved is the Aved of the desire of the heart, teshuvah, teshuvah, that draws from atmos. That's what we call out, cry out, and call. Hamelech, Hamelech. Beginning of Shoshan and the Tefillah, Hamelech. Okay. So we stop here. There's a long chapter here. Chapter Shin Ches, 308, page 627 through 630. Yeah.
But it's interesting because Chassidus keeps on saying that the name is gives the highest to the person. So many people who like, I mean, what if they have no